And welcome everyone to the first ever episode from YouTube, and this is the Worldwide Soccer Podcast. My name is Simon Allen. I am the Dalai Lama of soccer, and hopefully after you listen to this, you will go to www.simonallensoccer.com and listen to the show that I've been doing since 2005 every week, the Worldwide Soccer Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I thought it would be very appropriate to go ahead and talk about the U.S. national team, the under-23 U.S. national team, and their horrible performance against El Salvador. And I thought to myself, I don't want to start the show off negative. I don't want to start the series off negative. I'm not even sure if I want to do more tthan one of these a month. But at the end of the day, it had to be said. I've been listening to a lot of people saying that it doesn't really matter that we didn't make it to the Olympics. It's absolutely critical that the under-23 team went to London. It was absolutely critical because at the end of the day, this is when we as US soccer fans, and possibly for those out there who are Major League Soccer fans, to go ahead and showcase the talent that we have. And every country, every soccer loving country thinks of this as a showcase. And you have to imagine this. We're not going to showcase our under 23 talent to the world at the World Cup, maybe the Gold Cup. But really, at the end of the day, how much of the world watches that? So we have to showcase them somewhere. And why not the second biggest event in the world, the Olympics? So the whole idea of that this is a learning experience, that this is just a baby step towards something better in the future, absolute bullshizzle in my opinion. This was a critical thing that we needed to do, and we couldn't get it done. So everybody's essentially coming to the defense of certain players and the organization that sort of handles, these players and U.S. soccer and so on and so forth. I pretty much can blame a few people for this particular loss. And I'm not going to blame the players, except for one. I'm not going to blame any players because if you look at this squad, if you go down the list, and if you go to Wikipedia and see who's available, this is not a bad bunch of players. These are some pretty solid players with great backgrounds. These are guys that have been around in relatively to their age, and essentially are the best that we have to offer. There is no one that I know that sat at home and went, yeah, so and so should have been in the squad, and so that plays in the third division of Belgium should be in the squad. This is the best that we had to offer, and I really think that these guys are very talented, bar one. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be a reason, and I place the blame squarely on the shoulders of Caleb Porter, the college coach that was thrust into the position of under 23 manager. He's neither a manager nor a coach, in my opinion. And you might say, well, he did great, in his college career. He, the 2008, roster for his college was brilliant. Again, bullshizzle. If you look, let's be honest, let's step back a bit. There's coaches and there's collector coaches, and that's what Caleb Porter to me is. The 2008 roster in college was pretty much Steve Zakuani, which everyone says, wow, if it wasn't for Caleb Porter, we wouldn't have in Major League Soccer someone like Steve Zakuani. Again, bullshizzle. Steve Zakuani was an Arsenal academy player at a very early age who wanted to come to America, who came to America. Caleb Porter saw that, offered him a scholarship to come and play, and Bob's your uncle. Suddenly you're the coach that made this player. No reference to anyone from the Arsenal Academy. I'm not a Euro snob, but look at the other guys on the roster for the college team that Steve Zakuani played on in 08. Bunch of ODP guys. No one gave credit to those coaches, and the guys with a lot of club experience in the Cleveland and the Ohio area. So to me, Caleb Porter was essentially a guy flying high on results that really he'd had nothing to do with other than collecting players. Yes, it's part of the deal of being a coach. You got to know where to get these guys. But again, it's college is a different world, obviously. But I don't think that Caleb Porter was the right guy for this job. Now you might say, well, who was the right guy? Well, yeah, we already had a guy. Jurgen Klinsmann. He should have taken over the reins of the under-23 squad. After all, these are the guys that are going to go, jump from under-23 to the senior squad. And it sort of showed, the performances showed that Caleb Porter wasn't quite up to the task. The Canada game was atrocious. And I sooner forget that game than talk about it. The El Salvador game pretty much showed me that Caleb Porter thinks that the U.S. national team's a one-trick pony. Let's go down the flanks, get it to whoever's in the middle, Joe Corona, have him score. Set plays were were decent, but stringing passes together, not so great. Creativity, horrible. When the forwards took the ball down the middle, they were left wondering what to do with it. So essentially having two pretty decent Major League Soccer players in Freddie Adu and Brek Shea, which, by the way, I watched the Spanish telecast, and I love how the commentator called him Brick Shea, which I thought was pretty funny. But anyway, but having these two guys sort of be the center of attack, so to speak, or the flank of attack, was brilliant, because at the end of the day, they're very experienced. But if they weren't there, none of this would have really happened. None of the good things would have happened. And at the end of the day, we have to sort of point a finger at someone who's to blame for this. And yes, I point the finger at Caleb Porter. He couldn't manage his squad. He couldn't collectively say at halftime, listen, we're going to go ahead and score, do the things we need to do, and then we're going to close the game down, because, it really didn't happen. He couldn't motivate the squad. The guy that I thought played his socks off was other than Brek Shea, was Freddie Adu, who needed a second chance, who needed to go to the London Olympics and show the world how wrong they were about him. Show me how wrong I was about this guy, that he's not a has-been, that he's a viable player. But then again, we're not going to see that. We're not going to go to the London Olympics, and we're not going to showcase our players. Again, Caleb Porter has to go. It's not that he's not a good guy, and I'm sure if I ever met him, I'd shake his hand and tell him how good he was. But he's not good enough for the U.S. national squad. And the U.S. national squad, whatever level, is not an on-the-job training kind of thing. You don't go there and go, well, you were in college for a few years, you had a good run. No, there has to be something going on. And I heard some atrocious things about how this guy is a Major League Soccer coach in the making. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. He's a college coach. That's plain and simple. He knows how to go and get players from around his area. He knows how to get good players that have been coached by other better coaches. And he knows how to make a sort of a winning squad, but not at that level. It's time, and this is just my opinion, that the U.S. national team says to Jurgen Klinsmann, you got to coach this at every level, under 23 including, because the showcase of the Olympics is something that we don't want to miss in the future. And I think having just a bunch of average college coaches come in and say, well, we'll handle it. Or one nightmare I have is just sort of going back to 1994, looking at the squad and going, hey, you become a coach. Because at the end of the day, just because you played in 1994 in the World Cup doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great coach. Again, you might very well be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be. U.S. Soccer has to go out and find better coaches. They haven't with Caleb Porter. They have with Jurgen Klinsmann. So have him step it down a bit and say, listen, we're going to go ahead and you're going to go ahead and take over from the bottom up. Because after all, we're going to move these under 23 lads to the senior team very, very soon. The whole idea of the U.S. not going to the Olympics really makes me sick, because at the end of the day, how are we going to go ahead and showcase our American talent to the rest of the world? Now, you might say, well, that's what the World Cup is for. Great. The World Cup is the biggest event in the world. I mean, wars stop for this thing, and people essentially set their lives around it. So yes, that's the biggest thing in the world, but you're not really necessarily going to send your under 23 squad over there to showcase it. You're not necessarily going to send the under 23 squad. You might a few players, but not necessarily all of them to the Gold Cup, and the Gold Cup doesn't even come close to the World Cup. So what's the next best thing to showcase young talent in America? It's the Olympics. And unfortunately, we're not going to do it. And anyone who out there who says that, well, no one really cares about the Olympics is talking a bunch of bullshizzle. Everyone cares about the Olympics. In fact, people who don't necessarily care about soccer might tune in and watch the U.S. national team play in the Olympics. And I dare you to say no one cares about Olympic soccer to the women's national team. I dare you to say it, because you know what? It means a heck of a lot to them. So again, it's a moment lost, and a great moment to essentially shine on the world stage for our young lads. And again, I can't fault the players. I have to fault management on this one. And I honestly don't see the outrage. I don't see people sort of writing into U.S. soccer or getting very mad at Caleb Porter or U.S. soccer. And I really think it's a shame. I think that there has to be some voice from the people out there to say, listen, we're mad. We didn't expect this. We need this to happen. We need this to happen every 4 years. We need to go. Now, one guy I do really blame for this, and I don't put entire blame, but most of the blame, team wise, is Bill Hamid, DC United goalkeeper. Not a fan of him, and in fact, I think he's not a great goalie. I don't think he really belongs in Major League Soccer. And the performance against El Salvador really showed it. Yes, he made a horrible mistake, to essentially in the last dying seconds, where you can sort of blame the referee and say, well, should have blown the whistle a couple of minutes before that, but that doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. This guy was very slow off his line, very slow to react. In fact, I don't remember a time where he was properly situated, where he wasn't slow to react. There were a few times where the ball was shot straight to him where he didn't have to move. Or in fact, he was still on the spot and could sort of dive to get it. But at the end of the day, if you wanted him to react one way or another, he was always slow. Even when there was a ball that was being passed back and it was being protected by a defender, he was slow to go ahead and get it. He was slow in every aspect of it. Yes, he might be quick to dive, but just slow to react. I don't think this guy belongs in the U.S. national jersey. And the fact the only way he should be wearing it is if he goes down to Marshall's and picks one up for $19.99. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't belong in that jersey. And sadly, I really believe that he's the poster child for U.S. soccer. I really think that Major League Soccer and U.S. soccer is grooming him, or they are grooming him, to essentially ship him off to Europe or transfer him somewhere else. The same way they kind of groomed, or the same way they got sort of behind Tim Ream. I thought Tim Ream was a horrible defender in his last year at Major League Soccer. I thought he was atrocious, absolutely horrible when it came to the national team. Yet somehow, magically, everyone's behind him. Everyone who counts, really. U.S. Soccer, Sunil Gulati, Don Garber, even the Red Bull behind him, so they can get him to Europe. And why do we need to get our guys to Europe? So essentially, Major League Soccer becomes a viable league. It becomes a league around the world that, number one, is respected, but number two, can produce really good American soccer players. But Tim Ream, okay, now let's flash forward to today. Is Bill Hamid the guy that you want representing American goalkeeping skills around the world? Absolutely not. Yet I believe he really is the poster child. He is the guy that they're going to sort of say, yeah, this is the future of American soccer. We need to ship him out to Stoke City or wherever they can get him, sort of a mid-level EPL team, and sort of wave the flag of Major League Soccer around the world and say, listen, we're really much better than you take us for. I know it's a bit cynical, but I really believe that there was at one point a sort of factory in Major League Soccer of producing players and then shipping them out for that benefit, for the utter PR of it all. Yeah, Clint Dempsey is absolutely a wonderful sort of poster child for Major League Soccer. Playing here and then tearing up Fulham, absolutely becoming a legend there. Landon Donovan, who obviously started in Germany, LA Galaxy, and then being sort of loaned out to Everton, is an absolute great poster child. Tim Ream isn't. Bill Hamid won't be. And I'm hoping that Bill Hamid is sort of left to the side and said, listen, kid, play for DC United, but there's other players that we can put in the goalie spot that are a lot better. And it sort of rounds off my sort of belief that Caleb Porter had no idea who Bill Hamid was. Because if he had seen him play for DC United, or if he watched him in training, he's not that great. Klinsmann should come up and say, listen, you had your chance, Caleb Porter. Go back to the college scene. That's where you're good at. That's where you're perceived to be fantastic. You're not going to be, you're not going to be the next thing in Major League Soccer, because at the end of the day, you can't handle the best American players. How are you going to handle things with such limitations when it comes to running a Major League Soccer team? And let me, i.e. Jurgen Klinsmann, take over the under-23 squad. Why not have Jurgen Klinsmann just take it from start to finish? What do you think? Go ahead and email me at simonallensoccer@yahoo.com. I hope you do. Simon Allen Soccer, SimonAllensoccer @yahoo.com. Go ahead, email me, or I think there's a little thing over here where you can write whatever you want, and listen to the show. I'm on simonallensoccer.com, www.simonallensoccer.com, and I have a show called Worldwide Soccer. I've been doing this since 2005. I hope you tune in for the regular show, and I'll talk to you soon. Have fun. Bye bye.